What is going on, boys? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 2 showdown preview for the FedEx St Jude Championship. Going to quickly cover the weather for tomorrow, some of the strategy involved with making your single round slates, lineups that is, and then of course just talk about some of the cash builds you can go with. Any questions you have down in chat, we'll make a few lineups together. Really, just give you a bite-sized piece of what to expect for tomorrow. Hopefully everyone's having a solid Thursday here, whether it's for the fantasy side or just in general. I could see Nick down there might be having a slightly less eventful night than us. He's going to a kids conference, it looks like, in 20 minutes here. So again, hopefully you're having a little bit of a more exciting night than what Nick's doing there. But hey, Nick, I'm glad you came by for the live stream, right? You got 20 minutes here. We'll go ahead and hop right on into give you the goods, because I know you got to go here soon, Nick. So I'll share my screen. We'll talk about the round today and then take a look at the weather here for Friday. So in terms of the round today, well, this is the tournament in general. Let's bring up the live stats here. And if we look at the actual scoring average, it was 1.5 strokes under par, so 1.49 shots. It's going to update here a little bit as there's still a few people left on the golf course, but it played a little bit easier today than what we saw there in 2021, and that was to be expected with some of the weather that came through the area. You even had a few slight showers throughout the day. The greens were extremely receptive, and on top of that, the fairways were also a lot easier to hit. And because they're supposed to get another sprinkle or two overnight, I would expect conditions here on Friday to pretty much be the same as what we saw here for Thursday. I am expecting a scoring average of at least 1.25 shots under par, if not the true 1.5 shots that we got for today. And a lot of that is due to the weather, because here on Friday, you're looking at near pristine conditions. In the morning, just 5 to 6 miles an hour of sustained winds. The wind gusts are still up there. You can see like 10 miles an hour at 7 a.m., 12 miles an hour there at 9 a.m. But the more sustained winds are there in the PM wave, right? 9 to 10 miles an hour consistently through the entire PM there. So you could see a little bit of an AM PM split. You kind of saw that today. So we split this by wave. You can see in the morning it played the 2 shots under par, right around a shot under par in the afternoon. So right around a shot difference. But the weather for tomorrow isn't nearly as different as it was today. If we take a look at the weather, it doesn't look all that bad here on Windfinder, but anybody that was watching the ESPN Plus coverage will know that there was not a breath of wind in the morning. Now, in the afternoon, it wasn't all that severe, but you were still dealing with like 9 to 10 miles an hour of wind. So that's why when I mentioned the scoring average, I think it might be a little bit more difficult tomorrow morning. Might play closer to like 1.6, 1.7 shots under par. But this afternoon wave stuff, it's going to be very comparable to what we're going to see here on Friday. So with that being said, there is going to be a slight emphasis on the AM wave because of the lower winds, because of the more pristine greens. You're going to definitely have an advantage getting to those sort of players, but it isn't going to be exclusive. I'm not only going to be playing guys that are there in the morning wave. There are plenty of guys that are relatively low owned, plenty of upside there in the PM wave that I'll be getting to in bunches. And first and foremost, let's just start it off with Scottie Scheffler, a perfect example of one of those players. Today, he really got off to a rough start. He was 4 over par through his first 5 holes, ended up 1 over on the day. But on top of that, he lost over 4 strokes putting. I believe it's his worst ever round on the PGA Tour, or up there in terms of his worst rounds on the PGA Tour. And at $10,600, I definitely see a bounce back. And it's not just selfishly because I played him in 40% of my lineups this week, but just from the statistical perspective, he set up plenty of looks today, had multiple misses from less than 5 feet, a 2-foot miss for par at one point. And even when he was setting up those 10 to 15 footers, I believe he only cashed in on like 1 hard putt all day. The rest of them were in that 6 to 7 foot range, which are essentially gimmies for somebody of his pedigree. He just has a ton of room for improvement. I mean, if he ball strikes it like he did today, which includes a water ball, it wasn't even all that sharp, he's going to go out there and shoot something like 3 to 4 under par, let alone if he goes out there and gains with the putter, something that Scottie Scheffler does quite often, right? You could legitimately see a 6 to 7 stroke swing in terms of his putting stats here from Thursday to Friday. And if that happens and he just continues to ball strike it like he has, watch out, right? You're going to get that ceiling round, let alone if he goes out there and strikes it like Scottie Scheffler can. He has multiple avenues to get to this ceiling performance, which is why I like him so much. He's only going to be right around 15% owned, so he's one of the lower owned guys in this range. He's actually even lower owned than Cameron Smith now, who after his first round, I think a lot of people will be willing to get to. Scottie Scheffler has arguably even higher upside. So I like those type of plays up top. We're not going to talk about all of them, obviously. If you do want access to my entire player pool, everyone I'm taking above 10 grand, that will have to be on the Patreon page. But another example would be Xander Schauffele. He couldn't make a putt for his life today, and I decided to play a birdie or better matchup for him on Prize Picks. I also take his over 4.5 birdies, and I believe he finished at 4 birdies, right? He didn't end up holing out there on the last hole. He did have one more chance to make a birdie, but it would have been a far-fetched one at that. But he was setting up opportunity after opportunity all day. It just was very middling with the putter. Now he's not as huge of a loser as a Scotty Scheffler who lost over 4 strokes with the flat stick. But Xander Schauffele, when he's running on all cylinders, is going to gain 2-3 strokes to the field with that flat stick. He definitely has that in him. He's playing in the morning wave, so unlike a Scotty Scheffler, he will be in the advantageous conditions. So he does have that going for him. But Scotty Scheffler, right, is like the ultimate showdown play tomorrow based on the ball striking stats that we saw, based on the regression that is likely to come with that flat stick. But Xander Schauffele, maybe not as good of a play, but he's got the morning wave going for him. So that's what we're doing with there. We'll talk about some of the chalk. I do think that Rory McIlroy will still be owned. Now, do I think he's going to be the highest owned player on the slate? Absolutely not. That is going to be Tony Finau. No doubt about it. Tony Finau is going to be the chalkiest player on the slate. And if you know me, when it comes to a single round sample size, we're probably not playing Tony Finau. So I'm not going to be there at 10 grand. Just give you an idea of some of the other pieces of chalk. Patrick Cantlay is going to get plenty of attention based on his round today. I'd imagine somebody down here in the 8K range, like a Sam Burns. Ju Young Kim is going to get attention. Colin Morikawa, after his putting performance today, I would expect to draw plenty of attention in Showdown. You're going to get plenty of chalk here, but it's going to be the guys at the top of the leaderboard. So from a holistic standpoint, just taking a step back here, right, trying to take a look at the slate as a whole, I'm going for bounce backs, right? Guys that maybe didn't have the best round there in round one. Now, it's not to say that I'm only targeting guys that didn't play well in round one. There are a few performances that I'm looking to back up, but it's going to be a lot harder to eat that chalk. They're going to be higher owned. We know that. And most of those players that played well in the morning wave are also more expensive now. A perfect example of that, just to give you an idea. Let's see who got a little bit more expensive over the week. I mean, obviously, a lot of the guys up top got a little bit cheaper. You go down here to the 8K range, you can see Colin Morikawa got a little bit cheaper, which is surprising. So he's going to be mega chalk. The fact that he had a solid round in the PM wave and he had a good round, so that's going to make him even more popular. Sam Burns had a really good round in the AM wave. He also wasn't really dropped down in terms of his price. He's probably going to garner a lot of attention. But on the flip side, right, Sungjae Im didn't have the best round today, but he went up in price, right? He's going to be super low owned because of that. And it's not like he had a horrible round today, right? What did he shoot? Like even par. He was +1 the last time I checked. Those are the type of situations here in Showdown that you should be looking to take advantage of, because they're going to create artificial differences in terms of their ownership, even more so than what you'd have for 4-round contests, right? People will see somebody like Sungjae, who's more expensive now, and he didn't have a good round, be like, oh, I'm not playing that, right? I didn't play him in my 4-round stuff. Why would I play him in Showdown now? The reason why you should play him in Showdown now is going to be royally underowned. No one's going to want to play Sungjae Im because of that performance. So it's those type of situations that I think you should try and take advantage of. Another example of a guy who got a little bit cheaper after the first round is Jon Rahm. Now, Jon Rahm didn't have the best round today, but he sure finished off strong. He has all the positive momentum in the world at this point. We'll be teeing off in the morning wave. We'll have pristine greens, and he just couldn't make a putt. Realistically, that was what held him back today. The ball striking was there. The off the tee play was what you'd expect from a Jon Rahm. Just could not buy a putt for his life. And if there's one thing that we're going to expect to turn around on a single round sample size, it's that putter, right? That'll be a little bit volatile. You'll have a Scotty Scheffler-like performance one day, then go out there, have a Ju Young Kim performance the next day. I really like that from Jon Rahm. So kind of similar to somebody like a Scotty Scheffler, except that the X factor here is that he's in the AM wave. He gets the advantageous conditions. He's also only 11% owned because of the performance. Now, I made these projections just as he was going on that run, made a few birdies towards the end. So he might be a little bit more popular than my algorithm was giving him credit for, but it's not going to be 20% owned, right? Jon Rahm, even at $9,600, he's going to be like 16, 17% owned at the very most, if not close to 11, 12%, like my algorithm put him at, which makes him a great play. We'll catch up on chat, see if you do have a question down there about Alex Noren. So we'll go over that now because I know you got to get out of here soon, Nick. Alex Noren's going to be super low owned, right? He's here at $7,400. He's playing in the PM wave. So I'm personally not huge about playing him. I know, obviously, selfishly, me and you want him to play well here so that he can make the cut. I don't think it's the worst idea, right? He's going to be one of those super low owned players that I believe he's actually the same price, if not more expensive now that he was for 4-round contests. So the same thing with Sun JM. He's going to be royally underowned. And because of his performance was complete dog shit, right? He shot like +4 today, or +3 by the end. Ended up salvaging one birdie there in the last few holes. He's going to be like 0.5% owned. So I would argue that, it makes sense, right? If you're willing to take a shot on Alex Noren, you're willing to eat up that risk because certainly, he's a high risk player after that first round. It may pay off hugely there in dividends, right? Because he's going to be like 0.5% owned. He's going to be completely overlooked. And I loved him going into the week. So realistically, why wouldn't I love him going into round 2, right? Am I going to let that 1-round sample size completely toss me off of him? Maybe I'm talking myself into playing him here, Nick. I think I am, honestly. Maybe adding him to the player pool. Let's talk through this 9K range. So we talked about John Rahm. Justin Thomas, probably worth a few looks too. Obviously, ball strike to the absolute living shit out of it today. Will Zalatoris, you're going to have to make a decision on. His ball striking was hit or miss. He had plenty of shots. He was hitting to 4 or 5 feet. Again, kind of like a Scotty Scheffler, missed plenty of those birdie looks, was very tilting as somebody who bet on his birdie line today. But he set up those opportunities, right? He was putting himself in position. And for his career, he's a gainer on Bermuda. So I expect to bounce back, right? Like if he's going to be a gainer for his career and lose in round 1, like that's the telltale sign that somebody is quote unquote due. And I hate using that word, right? Nobody's ever due to go out there and have a performance. But when you look at the stats, somebody's maybe a little bit more likely to go out there and have that bounce back. That would be a Willie Z. So those type of players I see myself getting to. Here in the 8K range, Joo Young Kim is going to be chalky here, but he's playing in the morning wave. Maybe it's well warranted, right? I don't want to talk you off of a Joo Young Kim, but him and Sam Burns are going to be the chalk of this 8K range. Outside of that, you're going to see a lot of low-owned players. Now, Victor Hovland's not going to be low-owned, but Sanjay is going to be relatively overlooked. I expect Jordan Spieth to be relatively low-owned. Towards the bottom of the 8K range, guys like Joaquin Niemann, I mean, he started off super hot, right? He was like -4 through his first 5 or 6 holes, ended up 1 over par by the end of the day. So, yeah, crazy stuff, right? That's golf for you. I believe early in the chat, we had somebody who played Homa over Niemann, and they weren't too happy about it. And by the end of the round, Homa was like -4 and Niemann was +1. So, I mean, that just tells you everything you need to know about golf. It's volatile, right? So when we're playing at a 1-round sample size, it's stuff like that can happen over just 18 holes. Why would you take the chalk? Like, why would you play Colin Morikawa after he gains a bunch of strokes putting today? It's not likely to happen again, right? Whereas, somebody who ball striked it relatively similarly, like a Will Zalatoris, right, who putted bad today, who's going to be half as owned. I'd rather play him because they're like the same exact player, right? He's not half as likely to succeed as Colin Morikawa. And if anything, right, if you look at their Bermuda numbers, right, Zalatoris is advantageous on it compared to a Colin Morikawa. Those are the type of decisions that I'm making here. So not giving away my whole player pool. Those are the type of pivots that I'm making in that range. When we go on to the 7K range, actually, we'll see if there's any questions down chat. Looks like there are. Martin says, biggest surprises from today's round. So yeah, there were a few. So first and foremost, Scotty Scheffler's start. I mean, that's the obvious answer. That was surprising, especially because it was caused by putting. I mean, he can struggle at making birdies from time to time, but he doesn't typically struggle from that 4 to 5 foot range, right? When he's got to go out there, make an easy to convert putt, he usually does so. That was surprising. Willie Z's front 9 was very surprising to me. He had been ball striking the absolute shit out of it there for Saturday and Sunday. And then here in the first round, especially towards the end of his front 9, really fell apart. So that was surprising to me. Maybe it has to do with the caddy change. He's not even using the same caddy for this round that he did for the last 2 rounds last week. So there should be a little bit of an adjustment period. So I was a little bit surprised by that. Let's think about good surprises. The top of the leaderboard. The guys there at -8, right? JJ Spawn, for example, Sibu Kim, for example. It's all guys that are accurate off the tee. And I expected that, right? This is definitely a positional golf course. But with the strength of field, it's surprising, right? To see guys like JJ Spawn at the top. Guys like even Sibu Kim. I mean, we know he's a killer, right? He's won the Players' Championship. But those were good surprises. I like to see that. I didn't play a bunch of Spawn this week, but anytime somebody that deserves to go out there and have a good performance does, I'm going to be behind it. Martin says, wasn't able to watch much, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, it's Thursday, right? I know a lot of you guys are working. I get that. Nick Tay says, was doing great. Stallings at -3, Cantlay at -5. Next thing I know, they both hit a double bogey. Yeah, I'm assuming Cantlay did that on 18. I did see his water ball. How hard was hole 18? Difficult. So let's look at the stats. I'll give you some stats here, Nick. Just maybe make you feel a little bit better there, Nick. It played the hardest of any hole in the golf course, right? Played around 0.2 shots over par. There were 22 bogeys on the day, but there were 7 doubles or worse. So yeah, it was difficult. And the one stat that I saw on the broadcast is that there were 24 players that hit it onto the right rough of 18, and only one out of the 24 was able to hit the green in regulation. So less than what, like 4.5%, something like that, were able to hit the green in regulation. Really difficult, Nick. So don't feel too bad about it. Everyone was getting killed by 18. I believe you had Xander Schauffele was dealing with trouble there too. It's just not an easy hole. Martin says 17 and 18 were the hardest holes. Yeah, they were. 17 played over par. So did hole 7. So hole 7 played over, 14, 17, and 18. Hole 16, though, so right before 17 and 18, played nearly 0.7, 0.8 shots under par. So they certainly gave you a few holes there, but yeah, 17 and 18 sucked a lot. Nick Marr says, do you know anything about Chris Kirk's round today? I know he was +2 and didn't see a single shot. I'm going to bring up his shots gained metrics real quick, so bear with me. I'm bringing it up on the app. I don't have the live leaderboard available yet because the round isn't over yet, but I did some tracking. He wasn't very accurate off the tee early, so I imagine that has a lot to do with it. But let me give you the actual stat breakdown. I have it up right now. Alrighty, so in terms of his shots gained today, Chris Kirk, he was a slight gainer off the tee. He lost on approach. That's very concerning for Chris Kirk. And he lost 2 strokes putting. So his performance was really just bad all over the place. The only part that he gained significantly was around the green. And you're not going to go out there and have a ceiling performance by doing so. So I'll be playing Chris Kirk, but it's all speculative. Like if you're looking for stats to back up your reason to play Chris Kirk, to take a shot on him, they're not going to be there, right? But you see bounce backs, right? That's why it's a single round sample size. Now, if we're talking about round 4 showdown or round 3 showdown, and somebody has lost 2 strokes in both categories over the first 2-3 rounds, then that's more of a worry, right? But it's just one round, so I'll give Chris Kirk a little bit of slack there, but he won't have very much after tomorrow, right? If he doesn't turn it around tomorrow, I'll be trunk slamming, that's for sure. But let's continue with this player pool here. Talk about this bottom, well, I say top of the 7K range, actually. We finished with the 8K guys there. Billy Ho is a great fit for tomorrow. He's teeing off in the morning wave. He's got the accuracy off the tee I'm looking for. And kind of like I was mentioning with the JJ Spawn, Siwoo Kim, it's all these plotter type of players that go out there and take this place nuclear low. You saw guys like Rory McIlroy really struggle because of his off the tee accuracy. Willie Z, I think a lot of his problems were caused by his off the tee accuracy too. So somebody like Billy Ho that hits a lot more fairways than his peers is first off going to be a much higher floor player, but I'd also argue a much higher upside player. He actually has the capability to hit something like 14, 15 greens in regulation. And based on his historical baseline on Bermuda grass, he's going to be able to cash in a lot more than his peers. So in this 7K range, you can kind of see my focus change a little bit. Towards the top, I'm a little bit more willing to take bombers like a Scotty Scheffler, like a Jon Rahm, for example. But when we're starting to take value picks, I'm starting to focus a lot more on driving accuracy. Now, one guy that kind of bucks that trend, and the reason why I did these guys back to back here in terms of guys I wanted to cover is because it shows the opposite end of that spectrum. Now, Keith Mitchell, he's not an accurate driver of the golf ball. Don't get me wrong, right? He deals with a lot of issues when it comes to his driving accuracy. But if he's going to have a ceiling round, he's going to absolutely have to hit fairways. We know that. Like if he goes out there and he hits 5 or 6 fairways tomorrow, he's not going to have a ceiling round, right? So I'm just going to get over that, right? I'm going to assume that Keith Mitchell hits fairways tomorrow because that's part of the prospect of even getting to him to begin with. If Keith Mitchell can hit something like 9, 10 fairways tomorrow, he could take this place to like 9, 10 under par. He could shoot 59 around this place. I know that's like a hot take, but those type of players, like a Rory McIlroy, for example, off the tee guys like a Scotty Scheffler, Jon Rahm, when they're dialed in off the tee at this golf course, they're going to have 100 yards into every single green, especially Keith Mitchell. He hits the ball freaking country mile. The guy's got freaking redneck strength for days. That's Keith Mitchell for you. The guy's a tall, big brute strength, absolute just jacked guy out there. He's super tall too. Those type of players are the guys that like to take in showdown, even at a golf course like this, because when they're firing in all cylinders, they can go out there and shoot 7 to 8 under par. So I like the floor of somebody like a Billy Ho, right? Somebody that's going to hit a lot of fairways, right? There's multiple ways to get it done here. Keith Mitchell's a lot riskier. He's going to go out there and shoot over par a lot more often than somebody like a Billy Horschel. But you know who's going to get to 7, 8 under par a lot more often than Billy Ho? Somebody like Keith Mitchell. So it's kind of just what you're looking for, right? If you're playing in a GPP, I love Keith Mitchell. He's going to be lower owned, and then Billy Ho is also cheaper. But if you're playing in a single entry 2 to 3 max type of tournament, that's when I like to play a Billy Ho. That's when I like to take the safe, quote unquote, safer pick. Right, somebody who has a higher floor. A lot of times those contests are higher dollars, right? You're investing a little bit more money into them. And in GPPs, a lot of times you're playing more lineups, or you're playing like 150 lineups, for example, like I will be here for the second round. I'm willing to take guys like Keith Mitchell because I have a bunch of lineups to work with. If he sucks tomorrow, shoots over par, I really don't care. Like that's the truth about somebody like Keith Mitchell. It really doesn't matter if he goes out there and sucks tomorrow, because I'm playing like 35 players in my player pool, right? He's going to be on like 15 to 20% of my lineups. But you know what? If he goes out there and shoots 7 or 8 under par tomorrow, I'm going to have 20% of a player that might be like 1 to 2% owned tomorrow that you absolutely have to win the GPP, right? Somebody like Billy Ho, and I don't want to trash the pick because I'm also playing him in the 150 max tomorrow. He's going to be 11, 12% owned. I'm not really sure if he's going to shoot 7, 8 under par, right? If he shoots like 4 to 5 under par, you might not have that. It might be nice to have Billy Ho, who shoots 5 under par tomorrow there at $7,900, but you're not going to absolutely have it, right? So that's why these high risk type of players make sense in the larger field contests. Again, if you're playing single entry, that sort of thing, I would think twice about taking somebody like a Keith Mitchell. Ches Reavie fits the mold of somebody just like a Billy Ho. So they're at $7,900. He's going to hit a lot of fairways, who has that high floor. So not really a Keith Mitchell type that you're trying to play in like 100,000 entry type of contest. But if you're playing a single entry, higher dollar type of thing, Ches Reavie makes plenty of sense. He's 5% owned, has had a lot of success around TPC Southwind. At comp courses, has also had plenty of success over the years. So Ches Reavie, makes a lot of sense. And again, it depends on the contest that you're in. Brendan Steele, another high accuracy player, teeing off in the morning wave, $6,800, kind of fits that same type of build. High floor player, just needs to get the hot putter work. And same thing with Ches Reavie for that matter. Both of them, not the most skilled on the greens. They definitely leave a lot to be desired in terms of their shots gained putting. I mean, even on Bermuda grass are both significant losers, but they're going to send up just plenty of opportunities. And in single entries, cash type of contests are guys I'm getting to in bunches. Stuart Sink, a little bit more volatile, so kind of more along that Keith Mitchell train there, where he's relatively long off the tee. He's a gainer on Bermuda grass. The approach numbers have been pretty decent over the last 2 to 3 events. Now, over the last 24 rounds, it hasn't been quite as consistent, but he's at least trending in the right direction there. And with Stuart Sink, right, he can get on a roll in a hurry. I mean, he's been first round leader a few times over the last few years. He's actually won on the PGA Tour twice over the last 2 calendar years. That is a lot more than most of the guys in this range can say. In fact, I mean, in terms of PGA Tour winners, I mean, you can count them on like 1, maybe 2 hands at the very most in terms of guys here in the bottom of the 7K, 6K range type of guys, right? Most of them are just guys that finish in the top 25 at the very best. You might get 1 good performance a year, right? Top 5, top 10 finish out of somebody like an Adam Long, for example. Whereas Stuart Sink, I mean, he's got legitimate winning upside. He's got that 7, 8 under round in him. So I like him there at $6,600, a Bermuda specialist. I like Peter Malnati too. He's $6,300, so he's super cheap down there. He's accurate off the tee, so fits that same type of mold. And the thing I like about him is he puts together both sides of the argument. So he's accurate off the tee. He's a great putter. He's more of a plotter, so he has that type of floor built in. But it's also Peter Malnati. The guy's an absolute banshee. I mean, the guy's crazy out there. I mean, he'll make 6, 7 birdies in a row from time to time. That's Peter Malnati for you. There's a reason why he's the Showdown GOAT. We play him so much here in the single round sample size. $6,300. Love a man with a bucket hat as well. I have to say that. And he's going to be super low owned. So I love Peter Malnati. He was coming into this event with pretty sneaky form. Was at least 4 to 5 Showdown slates where he was getting near the optimal lineup. He was shooting something like 4 to 5 under par. And now all of a sudden it feels like people are just like bored of playing him. Like he was paying off people. Like people were playing Peter Malnati. He was getting close to like 7 to 8% owned. And he was coming through for people on Showdown. And now what? I have him at 0.6%. He's $6,300. And yes, please, I'm definitely willing to buy back in. The last guy I want to talk about, at least for the free picks I'm giving out here, the rest are on the Patreon page for sure, is Sam Ryder at $6,100. And the reason why you play Sam Ryder, I mean, first off, he's a Bermuda specialist. You love to see that, but it's the Sam Ryder effect. The guy holds out like seemingly once event. And if he's going to do that tomorrow at $6,100, maybe make an extra like 3 to 4 birdies, that could crack the optimal lineup. I mean, he opens up a ton of opportunity up top. It takes somebody like a Sam Ryder. We're going to go through the lineup construction phase here in a second. And you can take 2, 3, 4 guys above $8,500. And in Showdown, with how soft the pricing is, I mean, you could just take your pick of your favorite players on the slate and make a lineup at that point. And let's go ahead and just hop into it, show you exactly what I'm talking about. Because going down to guys like Malnati, going down to guys like a Sam Ryder, for example, pay off hugely. And I'll show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. So let's go ahead and think for a large field GPP, how I would start one of those lineups. Let's go ahead and put Sam Ryder in there. He's at $6,100. And you can see that puts us already at $8,800 remaining per player. That's ridiculous. That's a lot of flexibility to have. And even if we want to take like a Scotty Scheffler and a Xander Schauffele together, we're going to be able to get that done. I mean, hell, we could probably still try and fit in another guy in this 8K range. Let's see. Who can we try and take? Let's try and make it a little bit more aggressive. Let's see. We could play Sam Burns. Let's actually put Willie Z in there. So we're going to make this extremely aggressive. Taking just somebody like a Sam Ryder, right? It opens up you to take Scheffler, Schauffele, and Will Zalatoris together, right? And you still have $7,000 remaining per player, which means if you want to take Peter Malnati, like really take this to the extreme, right? Just to show you what you can buy, you have $7,600 remaining, right? You can go up here. You say you really like Chris Kirk, right? Even after the bad round today, you could big lineups like that, right? Now, you want to get a little bit creative about it, right? You don't have to pick all the same guys here than I am, right? But just by taking one guy at the bottom of the leaderboard, right, it opens up so many more combinations of guys up top. So if you don't like Sam Ryder, like I said, you can just go and take Malnati. Where is he? Peter Malnati there at $6,300. You still have $6,800 remaining. Now, you don't have to be as aggressive as me and take somebody like a Will Zalatoris. You can go down here, take somebody like a Sam Burns at $8,600, and you still have an average of, like, you take somebody at $7,200, you take somebody at $7,300, give or take a few $100s in either direction, and you could very easily build a lineup. So if you're trying to get a little bit more aggressive up top, there are plenty of options on the slate to go down and do so. Now, if you want to be a little bit more, let's say, balanced, right? I'll show you what that type of lineup will look like. So a little bit more balanced here. Let's go ahead and start with Xander Schauffele, who I think might be one of the diamonds in the rough for tomorrow's slate. Let's take Sam Burns in there too. I think he makes quite a bit of sense. We could take Billy Horschel. Let's take another 7K guy, another 8K guy here, actually. Let's put Ji-Young Kim in there from there, $8,500. So if you're going a little bit more balanced, you can see you're still taking like 4 quote unquote studs. Now you're not getting 2 guys above 10 grand. You're not getting a Will Zalatoris 2. You're stuck here in the 7K range, right around $7,400. Now, do we think there's a massive difference between the guys here in the 7K range and the guys here at the top of the 6K or even the middle of the 6K? At least in my opinion, there's not, right? So, the balanced build is going to be a little bit more popular here for tomorrow, but at least personally, I want to be a little bit more aggressive, right? Like that first build that we did together screams a lot more upside to me, like going to somebody like a Xander Schauffele. And now you don't have to take 2 guys above 10K. You can kind of tone it back a little bit, right? Let's say you want to take Xander Schauffele, Willie Z. Let's go ahead and put John Rahm in there too. You could probably still make that work, right? That has $7,000 remaining. Let's say you don't want to take Sam Ryder. You like really hate him for whatever reason. Let's say you also really hate somebody like Peter Malnati. Just take somebody like Kurt Kitayama, right? You can take those 3 guys up top, maybe not as aggressive as our first build we did, and just take somebody like Kitayama and make it work. You have $7,300 remaining. And like I was just mentioning, like this middle top of the 7K range is not that much different than the bottom of the 7K range. In fact, I think there's plenty of guys towards the bottom of the 7K that are just as good, if not better, than some of the guys towards the top of it. So I'm not going to be as balanced here for next round for sure. I'm going to be a little bit more studs and duds approach just because I think the pricing dictates so. What we'll do now is we'll do a cash lineup. So anytime I'm doing cash, especially for Showdown, I'm going to sort it by score and definitely take at least 1 to 2 guys at the top of the leaderboard. So I think Tony Finau is almost a must play in cash. I think as a second man in, right, you want to take somebody cheap. I think somebody like Siwoo or somebody like a Sahith Theegala would make a lot of sense. I don't think you have to play both together, but just for the sake of this video, let's go ahead and put them there. In terms of a third guy, I mean, you should probably take at least one more guy that's expensive on the board. So maybe a Cam Smith, maybe a Patrick Cantlay makes a little bit of sense there. Let's go ahead and put Cantlay in just because he's the highest there on the leaderboard. This is how you want to start your cash lineups, right? You want to corner yourself on at least 3 or 4 chalky plays. And then with your last 2 spots, you can be a little bit more creative, but you don't have to be, right? You can still take guys that you expect to be popular, right? Like an Aaron Wise, a Max Homa, make a lot of sense in that scenario. Towards the middle of the 7K range, I mean, let's see. Adam Scott makes some sense, right? He's a lot cheaper than he was for 4-round contests. JT Poston you could take after his solid round today. You don't overthink it when it comes to your cash lineup, right? You take a lot of guys that you think are going to be chalk, that you think are going to play well, right? And there's a cross section there. You don't just take chalk that you think is just going to be chalky just for the sake of it, because they could go out there and bust, right? And if you have a bust in your cash lineup, that's far from ideal, right? So JG Spawn, for example, I'm not the biggest fan of for cash tomorrow. I'm not the biggest fan of KH Lee. I'm not the biggest fan of going to a Troy Merritt for cash tomorrow. They're all suitable options, but they're just guys that I personally believe in a little bit more. So that's what I'm doing from the cash side and what I'm thinking here for the next round. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the stream here unless there's any questions down there in chat. Let's see what we got. Nick, I know, had to go to his meeting there. That makes sense. And Jack says, good fight back by Cam Young today and another solid round by Tom Kim. Yeah, you love to see it with Tom Kim. Kid's an absolute stud. Looks like he's going to be like a top 20, top 25 player in the world, that type of guy. So I'm excited for it. Thank you guys for stopping by as per usual. Going to try and do this for rounds 3 and 4 as well. Obviously, weather permitting. If we end up getting a delay of sorts, that may end up throwing off those plans, but expect without a delay to see a live stream tomorrow night, right around 7:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. We will have a prize picks video dropping on tonight. So look forward to that if you're playing on the prize picks side, but that's all I've got for you guys. Thank you guys for stopping by again, and best of luck with all of your lines.